This is the third year I'm here in Oldsmar. I can say it now, Oldsmar. I even know the way here almost until I get close to your door, and then I get confused. So the question came to mind what to talk about since we've covered like your whole life in great detail.
There's more, but who wants to go back there?
Yes. Well, there's some dark, dark secrets that no one will ever hear. We know that. So, but anyway, I know. I suggested let's talk a little bit about your work in Ancestry.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that. By the way, it's October 11th, 2018, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm almost 79, believe it or not. I know I look 50 or something, but I got records to prove it. And you're 88.
88.
Yeah. So we have a few miles down the road, but the road goes on forever. Not. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So we're going to talk about Ancestry. It's such a vast topic, and I've been thinking on the plane here, like what part of it could we scratch the surface without it being just a rambling? Because you know we have family tree. I'm going to talk a little bit, saying that I'm going to try to shut up a little bit. We have a family tree in common. We're siblings, but then it quickly grows to there's the Watson side of the family, and then our mother's side, and that's just the bare beginning. And I know personally, I know so little about the Watson side. You know a lot more, and it's always been an enigma. You might say our dad and his folks. And there's sort of stories that circulate about Dad and his family, but not much. And then we have Mom's side, which we know a lot more about. In fact, growing up, we had more contact with. And it just quickly goes. You know, there was the Alexander. I'm talking about Mom now. Alexander Sesher.
Yeah.
And then the Watson.
Ward.
And tell me a little bit, is that where you started your adventure and learning?
Mostly because Dad never talked about his family. I don't think I paid any attention to the Watson family. One time his brother George walked in where I worked at a drugstore, about 15 years old, and his brother, Dad's brother, walked in. I didn't recognize him because he had a full head of hair and it was curly and sort of reddish, tall, a lot taller and thinner than Dad. But he just walked in and said, "I'm your dad's brother." Oh. Talked for a little while, and then he left, and I never saw him again.
Oh.
And Willa, I knew that was my dad's sister because he often would visit Willa. Willa was one of his favorite in his family. So he kept contact with Willa. And Willa had two sons, Harry and Petey. Petey was Harold, I think was his first name. He recently died at 90, and Harry died earlier. Harry was a butcher, and Petey, last I knew of him, he was a milkman. He delivered milk.
So it's better to drink milk than to eat meat because he lived longer.
Yeah, he lived to be 90.
Yeah, there you go. This is proof positive. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, but
okay.
So that's what got me started into Ancestry. I wanted to find out about Dad's family. What was, were they good? Were they bad? Where did it lead? Mm-hmm. Were any of them around us? really, I found out later there's a lot of relatives that were in Elizabeth I didn't even know about.
Well, that's interesting.
The Wiggles.
The Wi-
Wiggles were related to us. I didn't know that.
No, we grew up thinking that we were this small clan,
Yeah.
outrageous clan well, for a while living on Williamsport Road, Squabbler's Knob, I think it was
Yeah.
called.
Well, we called it that.
Yeah, we did. But there was so much more to it, and we had a group of people that could get together at Thanksgiving and Christmas and fill up a basement, but really in the larger extended family would be so much more than that. We didn't have contact with them.
Now, Carol knew more of them than I did because Carol stayed home. I was often at my grandmother's, so I missed out on some of the visits.
Mm-hmm.
I think Olive Watson, there's pictures in Ancestry of her.
Mm-hmm.
When Dad was kicked out of the house by his father, he went to stay with Olive. Olive was helped him out, and from there he joined the Navy at 17.
And just sort of a footnote to that, he became a corpsman in the Navy.
Well, mostly because he got hit on the head, or he something happened that he.
That happened later in life.
No, he told me. Now, you can't. Later in life, he couldn't say he was saying it, whether he was expanding on something. We don't know, but he said he was in a submarine. The submarine was stuck at the bottom of the ocean, and he had to get out, and it affected his nervous system, and he was no longer. Then he went to medical school because he didn't want to be trapped in a submarine anymore.
Now, this is the first time I've ever heard that.
That's what he told me.
and Dad was known to
Expand on things.
stretch the truth a little
Yeah.
bit. But the only small point I was going to make, he became known as Doc then, and throughout his life he was Harold, sort of Doc Watson, because of that. Now that of course predates his marriage to Mom, right? Yeah, and he went in the Navy and came out, and pictures of him, in my view, show a man that was pretty perky and
Yeah.
handsome and
Handsome.
like, wow. Then things happened, didn't they?
Yes, and I also found out that Mom and Dad eloped.
Oh my.
They were really married in 1928. They eloped, and I think they didn't tell anybody until I was coming along
Oh.
in 1930.
I never knew that either. How much tape do we have? Because it's digital storage, we know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So there's all this like family lore that you managed to uncover in the research you've done over all these years. Yeah. It's interesting to me that you took the Watson side because it was the most enigmatic, right, to us, all of us. And there we were with the Seshers and the Wards, which is more obvious.
We didn't know much about the Wards, but we knew some. I mean, there was a little bit. I didn't know Grandma Ward. I didn't know her at all. I knew one time I met Dad's dad, William. Mostly what I remember, I must have been pretty small because I remember looking up and the sun shining down and his hair was white, silver white, and it glowed.
Wow.
And I couldn't take my eyes off of it, the glowing white hair.
There's some photographs of him, aren't there? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the only thing I remember of him. And I must have been pretty small.
Mm-hmm. and I was even smaller, but not, like non-existent smaller.
So, and I don't remember Grandma Ward. I have some pictures of her, and she was around my mother a lot, but I don't remember
Yeah.
at all.
And we never went to see Grandma Ward or that sort of thing. Our families, what I'm trying to say is, weren't into maintaining contact, right?
Yeah.
It seemed like we were all...
As long as you were fine, everything was fine.
Yeah.
No, only time there was contact was something really bad. Do you know that me, Mom, and Pop, one time at one Easter, I'm in the Packard. Poppy always had this was a dark blue Packard that he had. And we were coming along the McKeesport Glassport Road because Meemaw said we had to have eggs to color. And Poppy was really mad and upset because we had to go out and drive in the rain. But he went out and drove in the rain and I was in the back seat to get these eggs for Easter to color them. And Poppy hit somebody.
A person?
A person.
Oh,
he
my
was a
God.
hobo.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think at that time I wasn't sitting I was sitting up front with, I think I was sitting up front with Meemaw. And she put me in the back seat, and she got in the back seat, and they put the hobo in the front seat and drove him to a doctor. Drove him to Dr. Stoller, probably.
Yeah,
But I remember that night in the dark, in the rain, and he hit this old man who was dressed like a hobo and putting him in the car and taking him to the doctor.
that's interesting. That there was no 9/11 paramedics and just
Nope.
scooped up.
Put him in the
hobo.
car.
I'm surprised that he didn't spread a tarp over the car
I know.
seat before.
He was really upset. Poppy was really upset because he I don't know, he thought, oh my God, I've killed this man, or hurt him bad, or,
Yeah,
something.
that could turn your life on its head for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was, well, Pop was an enigmatic man to all of us, I think. And I don't know that I knew him, or did anyone really know him?
No, I don't think so.
He didn't reveal himself to almost anyone. And I never understood, I was a kid, I mean, his relationship to Meemaw, or was that a loving marriage, or who knows, right?
I never saw them even hold hands.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody hugged in our family.
that's true.
Nobody hugged. You didn't say, I love you. You didn't hug to go by. You didn't say, I love you. You didn't. It was all, you're on your own.
Yeah, and I wonder if that can be attributed to our heritage, our, what would you say, it's English? There's a
Scotch.
Scotch. Mm-hmm.
Scotch-Irish.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's definitely not Italian or French. You would have gotten at least one "I love you," I think.
Yeah.
But it never happened. Yeah.
We were not very loving family.
You had to.
I mean, we
Yeah.
knew each other. You were supposed to know that you were loved.
I know, and that's how it was. In the measure of love, or in particular, I'm thinking of a man, his love for his family was his, if he had a job and held a job and brought brought the paycheck home, right? If he didn't beat the kids too badly, or the wife, or at least so that marks would show. I'm being a little bit so no, and his contribution to the raising of them was not particularly strong, I gather. I mean, I didn't feel that, but we had a weird family. Yeah.
Poppy gave orders to the family through Mima. I know, like if I upset him, I didn't find out from him. I found out from Mima.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's like the Don in a mafia or something.
He didn't have any connection. It was Mima. Mima was told, and then she had to relate to.
I'm going to move on from Bob, but I just want a little anecdote to it that's in my side of when I was married, I think, or about to be, I can't remember, and I took my young bride or bride-to-be to meet Pop. And the whole experience was really weird because he never acknowledged her or looked at her. He spoke to me, and she could have been a statue, dressed in a hat, or I don't know, and it would not have had any more impact on the room. So he's a tough man to figure out, but I think maybe tell me if I'm wrong, that our mother had an idea of what a professional man should be or could be, and a lot of that was imposed on me. That a tie and a shirt, and
you went to work dressed.
Yeah, and you
in
didn't get dirty, and that and the rest of us were the commoners. But anyway, in this can I use genealogy? Is that
it's genealogy.
Yeah. You started to run down the path in these families, starting at the sort of the tip of the pyramid, and you, I'm sure, unearthed. Well, the first thing you mentioned was people that we didn't even know we were related to, and then you go back generations, right? And it starts to get more remote. But how did you go about that? And did you learn any interesting? I imagine you did.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of Watsons in the Civil War. Allen Rising is I can't find anything about him later, but he was in the Civil War from the beginning to the end. But I have in there, in the Ancestry, his whole, what they call muster. He would desert, go home, and then come back. And he would then desert again and go home to Kentucky and come back. And he was in the hospital one time in the Civil War and then came back. He just was in the Civil War for the whole time. He was in the Atlanta siege. He was mostly fighting, believe it or not, around where my daughter Bonnie moved to, Nashville. He was in the Nashville battles. He was in the Stone River battles. We have also Watson that was in the same battles. John Anderson was fighting also at Nashville and Stone River.
On the south, the side of the south?
No, side of the north.
The north. Both individuals?
Both were in the
No, the
north.
one you just recapped, how does he remind me how he fits into the family?
Allen Rising was this husband of, or the father of Lillian Rising, which was Mima's mother.
Ah, so that's not too far back, but it doesn't take long, and you're into the
Great-great-grandfather.
Civil War. It must have been an amazing man to have survived that much fighting.
He was in the whole 61 to 65. And I have the whole muster list.
It's interesting that I know what that term is, but it's not a common word at all, muster. Yeah, but it's in the military. Call to muster, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's like a roll call or something.
Roll call.
Yeah.
They'll say absent and have a date, or they'll. He also served in a guard later. I think toward the end of the war, then he was in some kind of guard.
Well, the lay people to this line of inquiry, like myself, would try to Google, like, but that doesn't work, does it? You just
Yeah.
Google a name. So is there a way to
Fold 3.
what's it called?
Fold3.com.
Oh,
That's all the military stuff.
okay. And you go in with names? And
But you pay for it. You pay for it.
you pay for it. What?
Not much,
Sweating.
about $40 a year, something like that.
Okay. No, we have heard about how the Mormons kept records, but apparently there are
I get into that one.
organizations that collected or maintained military records.
I get into, that's part of Ancestry, part of the family tree which is connected to Ancestry. And so you can get into the LDS,
Latter-day Saints.
Latter-day Saints.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that. Latter-day Saints. Yeah.
And find out a lot of, because I've got started a part of it, I've got half of a family tree in LDS, but it takes a lot to copy everything over or find it, but it's in there.
So how is it possible to say how confident you are of the accuracy as you get back further? Excuse me. Do you reach points where, well, I think that was our, whatever, great. Are you making tough decisions as you?
Mostly I only trust death certificates, marriage certificates, and birth certificates, Social Security information, things that are on paper and government paper. Census I don't trust because, believe it or not, a lot of people, like on the Bahana side, a grandmother came from Austria, but during World War I, well, really from Germany, but in World War I, she wouldn't say she was from Germany, she'd say she was from Austria. A lot of people lied on the census. You couldn't trust it. But at least in the census, I could get a list of the children they had.
Oh, yeah.
So that way, when I did find some kind of paper, I could match it with the census list of the children, and I could find stuff because I knew what children they had and about what their birthday was, not really what it was, but then I could match it. So it was the one way to.
So I'm, sitting here impressed with, I don't know, your diligence and care to make sure that we're let me digress, and I've heard this sarcastically, and I won't say who, that the Watsons claim that we're all from noble birth,
Oh no.
or the Alexanders or whatever, that if you reach back, there's going to be kings and queens and no.
Only from Mima's side.
No.
There is from Mima's side.
Criminals or
From the Watson side, there's criminals.
criminals.
Mima leads back through the Plantagenets, really. And my genes,
Yeah.
I did the 2 and 3 and
Oh, you did.
genes. And I am related to Richard III.
Now, like a gulp. Richard, that's a.
And he was a nasty, nasty king.
Now, should I be a proper scientist and say, what makes you think that? Is it because those little chromosomes lined up? Or?
No, the DNA, yeah. DNA matches.
Oh, so you have could I put it this way? Your DNA has a strong correlation to the DNA of Richard III?
And I said, I'm about 80% sure.
And, well, he might have been a womanizer, and there's a lot of people that are saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just kidding, but,
Oh, they all had mistresses. They all did.
I think it was the lords and masters spread their seed, and it was more than just crops in the field.
And Poppy's family goes back to the Stanleys and the Sterlings and the Nevilles, who were kingmakers.
Oh. Okay, kingmakers
who fought, built armies to
Okay.
help these kings become kings.
Mm-hmm. So I have a new respect for Mima, Mabel's,
And the Alexanders.
and the Alexanders. So,
But the Watsons,
so
right.
no, we can blame that on Mom's poor choice for for a husband. That because we wouldn't be sitting here and be as intelligent and handsome and lovely as we are, but still,
Oh,
that's interesting.
but Dad was very smart. Dad
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very intelligent.
Yeah, he was, and I'd like to think we all, in our own way, benefited from a collective gene pool, if you will, of some pretty.
Oh, yes.
I'll just say it, intelligent people.
Mm-hmm.
If you, as you're looking back, are there countries that pop up as regions of the globe where our genealogy emanates from, or
Well,
what's
I also had my mitochondrial DNA, which is only passed from mother to children.
Mm-hmm.
You have mom's mitochondrial DNA, but you do not pass it to your children. Only the woman passes it to her children.
Sorry, Mark and Matt.
Yeah, only the woman passes it.
Okay.
But we're the J, what do they call the jasmine? The Eve, our Eve is jasmine, which came from Middle Africa up through Middle East, headed toward Western Europe, branched off to the northern Spain, and the J's and T's also went to England and Scotland.
Wow.
So we have Scandinavian in the blood, we have French and German, and we have Scotch and Irish.
Mm-hmm. And I know in in the family discussions, there seems to be a tendency to pick one of those. To, it's